Thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate your patience. We're going to get started in 1 second. We're just having some technical issues. Um, but by background, for those of you that are Move members or familiar with Move, we have a SAM, that's a Strategic Alliance Memorandum with the SBA. And the purpose of that SAM is to connect our community and our business community to some of the resources that the SBA has to offer. And so today we wanted to, at a very high level, bring someone from the SBA to talk about some of those resources and to connect our community to that individual, and more importantly, to find other ways to work together. So today we have a couple of folks from the SBA joining us. We have Lisa Villa, and we also have Nick Rajpara, who's actually going to be doing today's presentation. He will take some Q&A at the end. For those of you that do not know Nick, he's an economic development specialist at the SBA in the DC office. In this role, he collaborates with local SBA resource partners, public and private, economic development organizations, and other stakeholders to develop, bolster, and support informational initiatives which aid and assist small businesses and entrepreneurs across the National Capital Region. In addition, he's the program manager for SBA's Thrive initiative, a CEO Academy, which guides small business leaders on scaling and growing their business. He's also the Small Business Development Center project officer in his SBA field office. In his capacity, he oversees and collaborates with local SBDC networks in Washington, D.C. metro area. Prior to joining the SBA, Nick served as a small business counselor at the DC SBDC at Howard University. He holds a master's in business administration and master's degree in public policy from Pepperdine University. He has a bachelor's of science from University of California, Riverside. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Nick. And as far as housekeeping is concerned, folks, please save your questions for the end. Nick?
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Shahid. Thank you for the introduction. I assume you could hear me okay and you could see my screen. Yes?
We can hear you fine and see your screen.
Wonderful. Thank you, folks. Anyway, that was a very nice introduction by Shahid. We're excited about the Strategic Alliance, and bringing the resources of the SBA and the information of SBA right to your community, right to this chamber. This is a very big picture introductory webinar on all the SBA programs and resources. And the reason why we want to do this is we want to make you aware of the breadth of SBA resources to help you along your business journey. Usually folks know a little sliver about the SBA depending on their experience. When I tell people I work at Small Business Administration, some people think loans, other people think government contracting, some other folks think something else. So I just want to kind of give you, an overview. And then as we continue to do our presentations or webinars through our strategic alliance, we'll be going into deeper dives into some of these topics. So today is just kind of making yourself aware of what is out there. And then in the future, it would be more about going deeper and all these programs that could help you along with your business. Okay, so all right, so just real big picture. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, is a dedicated federal agency with a sole mission of serving all small business concerns within the United States and its territories. So I just kind of want to take a step back. We are a federal agency. People usually say, when people usually mistake us and they say Small Business Association, we're not an association. An association is a nonprofit NGO. We are part of the federal government. So we are the Small Business Administration. Okay, we are a dedicated federal agency, cabinet level, independent agency. People think, oh, you must be part of a larger governmental department like Department of Commerce. That's not true either. We're a standalone agency. Okay, and the administrator is actually in the president's cabinet. So that's just important to know. So the SBA, with its mission to serve all small business concerns in the United States and territories, has programs and services wherever you are in your business journey, whether you're starting your business, you're just thinking about starting your business, or whether you've started and you want to grow your business or expand, or let's say you need something happened and you need to recover your business. So we have programs and services all along the spectrum. And if you look at this next slide here, this is a general business life cycle. Okay, you take Introduction to Business 101. I used to be a business school professor, and this would be a general slide I'll put up. In any business, when you start, you're not making a lot of sales. You might even be cash flow negative because you're investing in your business, and that's in your introductory phase, right? And then at a certain point, you're in your business, everything goes well, your sales start picking up and you enter the growth phase. And then eventually, as you're growing your sales, things happen, more competition, saturation, you enter your sales start slowing down, you go into maturity, and then of course decline. And there are various things that could happen for you to go into decline. It could be an issue with your business, or it could be an outside issue, let's say a natural disaster or something, or just a disaster which is outside your control. So the SBA's programs and resources along the business life cycle, which corresponds to the previous slide. And I'm going to go over those programs and resources in today's presentation. Okay, for you to understand how the SBA achieves its mission of serving all small business concerns, you need to understand our 3C and a D and a E framework, our being the SBA. So the SBA it breaks all its programs into these 3Cs and a D and an E. The first C is capital access. This is, comes in the form of debt, which are IOUs. Comes in the form of equity, which you give a piece of your company. There are some grant-like programs that SBA has. They're very limited. I'll go over those, and there's some bonding programs for those in the construction and trades. So that first C is capital access. The second C of the SBA is contracting opportunities with the federal government. All right, so contracting opportunities. So the federal government, this is very big in this area because the federal government is the world's biggest customer. And, I'm assuming most of you folks are in the greater Washington metropolitan area, right around the Beltway. So this is a very big flavor of business in our area, contracting opportunities with the federal government. The federal government has a small business goal of awarding contracts. So there's a number, the federal government has under the Federal Acquisitions Regulations and the Small Business Act. The federal government has a goal of awarding 23% of their federal contracts to small business. All right, 23% of contract dollars to small business. So that's not a small number if you consider the federal government spends close to $1 trillion a year, and 23% are earmarked or gold for small business. So that's something to consider, and it's very popular in this area. So those are the first two C's. The second C is really the secret sauce of the SBA, which is the counseling and training that the SBA provides at no or low cost. Okay. So that's the bread and butter of the SBA, the 3Cs. And the D and an E is if you need it. The D is disaster recovery assistance. Before the pandemic, I did not even put up, the D and the E because it was niche. But as we saw in the pandemic, the SBA was the leading agency, one of the leading agencies in helping disaster recovery assistance, right? Because all the small businesses, like typically when the natural disasters happen, they were localized before the pandemic. Think of your fires, floods, hurricanes. When the pandemic happened, it was all throughout the United States and the world. So the SBA had a very important role in providing small businesses the assistance that they needed to survive through the pandemic. And it was one of the top agencies in deploying aid. I think we deployed over $1 trillion of economic assistance throughout the country during the pandemic. So disaster recovery assistance is also a component of our mission. Export assistance, for those of you who are interested in selling your product or service across borders, the SBA does have programs for this. Through the Office of International Trade, which is about to be rebranded, but there's a working capital program to help you sell your product or service overseas. And if you're interested in that, you could always reach out to me or my colleague, Lisa Avila. All right. So with that, I want to leave you with some references. If you're interested in taking advantage of any of these resources, here's some URLs that you could refer back to. And I really developed the slide deck as a reference, not just for me to teach it once and then you go on your merry way. Really, it's for something for you to refer back to. I left the D and the E resources for the D and E off, the disaster recovery assistance and the export. You could find that on our website if you're interested, but those tend to be more niche. But the bread and butter stuff, the 3 Cs, these are the most important links for that. So if you're interested in SBA capital access programs, there's there you start with the very first link, sba.gov funding programs, and you'll see all the different capital access programs that the SBA participates in. If you're looking for a lender, need to find a new lender, the SBA has a lender match platform, which is the second link. So, if you go to the SBA website, you'll see these various landing pages. The second C, contracting with the government. This is very popular in our area. We are, in the Washington, D.C. metro area. There might be folks who are outside the D.C. area. Of course, you could sell to the federal government wherever you are. But in our area, in the Washington metropolitan area, our office, which is a field office of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, this is a big, big focus for our office in our area. If you're interested in selling to the federal government, go to sba.gov/federal contracting. I don't know what level this audience is in terms of business. Some of you may already be in business and may already be selling to the federal government. If you go to that website that I just mentioned, there are resources there for you as well to make you a better federal contractor. They're no cost, the SBA paid for them and put those resources right up on the federal contracting landing page. So please do utilize them, to be a better federal contractor. Okay, so those are the first, 2 Cs and references for them. The last C, the counseling and training. Our website is something that, if you're a small business, you should just really have it saved in your favorites folder, because SBA, in addition to other 2Cs, has a wonderful learning platform and a business guide where you could take courses and specialized modules such as financing, such as marketing, selling to the government. You could, go to My SBA Learning and create an account on the learning platform. And you could do all this at no cost. All right. All it is, grabbing a cup of tea or water or whatever you want to keep yourself hydrated with, and just going through the information. The only cost is time, right? So, but I do encourage you to spend the time, because SBA's spent some money, your tax dollars, in putting together these really good resources on the learning platform and the business guide. The learning platform, our learning modules, a business guide is something that you could use along your business journey. So if you're just starting your business, there are wonderful resources on there, what you need to do before you launch your business. All right, have you done the market research? Have you developed your business plan? Have you maybe done a business model canvas? All that is on the business guide. Okay, now let's say you've done all that, then okay, what do you need to do to launch your business? Have you registered with the appropriate state and local agencies? Have you filed your articles of corporation? And done your legal filings? All that is in the business guide. And let's say if you've already done all that, there are wonderful things in the business guide in helping you manage your day-to-day operations, pricing your product or services. You could find all that there. Now, in addition to the online resources, there are human resources that the SBA has, where the SBA pays for human counselors to help you along with your business journey. I'm going to cover that. You know, these are called SBA resource partners. You could find that at the last link, sba.gov/local assistance. All you do is you type in your zip code and your local resource providers will pop up based on your location. Okay, and I'll go over that in greater detail, but this is a high level reference slide for how you can refer back to SBA programs and get the assistance that you need. Okay, the first thing, capital access. I'm going to do a deeper dive. Getting your business funded. Okay, so if you're interested in any forms of capital access, you go to sba.gov/funding programs. And these are the different categories of funding programs, capital access programs that the SBA participates in. There are loan programs. Now, the SBA does not make direct loans to business, except for one exception, which is the case of disaster. The SBA stopped doing this in the 1990s. What the SBA does, it guarantees loans to third-party lenders. So, basically, if you're interested in a loan, the SBA would not make the loan to you, but they would guarantee the loan. They say, okay, you know what? If the borrower cannot pay the loan, the SBA would come in and step in and pay a percentage of the loan for the borrower for whatever reason. So that's one option. And if you're interested in that, you can click on that tab. This is a screenshot of this website, which is funding programs, SBA.gov funding programs. This is what you'll see. So you could click on that and you could do a deeper dive if you're interested in loans. Now, let's say loans are not something that you're interested in, but you're looking for investors. The SBA does have an investment capital program known as SBIC, Small Business Investment Company. You could click on that second tab and learn more about that. Let's say your business was afflicted by a natural disaster, and that was the last, the last D in the E, and you need assistance. You could find that assistance also on this website, disaster assistance. Now, the way the SBA provides disaster assistance is through direct loans to small business. So these are low interest disaster loans. Thank you. Somebody just pointed right there. There were other programs during the pandemic that the SBA had for disaster assistance. There were grant programs and all these, really interesting things that Congress created to help small businesses get through the pandemic. Almost all those programs have expired, have sunsetted. But the economic injury disaster loan that was there before the pandemic and has continued after the pandemic. So that's something you can look up. And that's exception to the rule where, SBA does not make direct loans except for disaster loans. That's a direct loan from the SBA and it's at a lower interest. Surety bonds, for those of you who are in the business of construction and trades, some of you might need a surety bond to do the work, especially if you are a construction company, which is new, does not have the track record. You might need a surety bond. The SBA does have a surety bond program. Grants, I say this with caution. They're not, SBA does not give direct grants to small business. I'm sorry, folks, to let you down. They do give grants, but they're usually to organizations that help businesses. There are a few grant-like programs that the SBA participates in. I'm going to go over that, but these grant-like programs that SBA participates in are typically for science and technology, deep tech, think artificial intelligence, something that the government is interested in. So the SBA does have some programs that act like grants, which I'll talk about down the line for science and technology type firms. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next slide here. Loans. Okay, so loans are debt financing. This is IOUs, saying, all right, you know what? A lender is going to give you money with with a promise to pay back with a stated interest rate. Debt financing, we say start with your current lender. But let's say if your lender is not meeting your needs, you could go to our lender match tool. And what you do is you go to lender match, sba.gov/lender match. You fill out your business profile, you hit submit, and within 2 days, um, any SBA lender that wants to make a loan to you, wants to talk to you about this, would reach out to you. And then, of course, they would give you instructions on how to proceed in applying for the loan. This does work. I have a personal story. During the pandemic, there was a tech company that needed money. They were raising money through investors, but they couldn't give away any more of their company because whenever you deal with investors, they want shares in your firm, and this company had maxed out its cap table. So they said, "Hey, Nick, we really can't give away any more our company and through to investors. We're interested in loan." And this is not the typical company. A tech company is not the typical type of borrower that banks like because tech companies typically don't have the collateral to collateralize the loan as other businesses do. So, you know, I was skeptical that they would be able to get a loan, but I asked my colleague who was a lender, for 30 years to help these guys out. He knew all the lenders in the DMV. He was working his networks. And then, time was passing and these guys really had some bills to pay this company. So I said, "Hey guys, why don't you just go to Lender Match for fun and just see what happens? Just fill out this business profile." And they did that within 48 hours, they found their lender. So lo and behold, this does work. The lender match was just updated with the latest technology. So it is an effective tool to connect with a lender if you need to. All right, but these are the 5 C's of credit, that a lender will look at. They'll look at your character, do you have any outstanding liens, judgments against you? They will look at your, have you defaulted on a loan before? They will look at your business cash flow, of course, your collateral, your business assets, anything they could collateralize their loan against, capitalizations in your business, and economic conditions. Those are the kind of things that lenders look for. All right. So just kind of keep this in mind if you are interested in debt financing. Um, there are other types of financing as well. Um, Investment financing or equity financing. So this is a little different than a loan. A loan was a promise to pay back money within a certain time period with interest. This is not that. This is okay. You know what? Um, I'm gonna get money from you, the investor, and I'm gonna give you shares in my company, a little piece of my company known as shares. Okay, that's equity financing. So if you're interested in that, you should know the SBA does have a program. It is advanced, it is called the Small Business Investment Company Program, the SBAC. So the SBA gets money from the Department of Treasury, and what they do is they have a pool of private investors that they work with. Okay, these are known as small business investment companies. So these private investors raise money in the private markets, and the SBA matches them. For every dollar that they raise, the SBA matches them $2, right? And then the private companies, the venture capital firms, private equity firms, these are the private companies, they make the investment decision which companies they want to invest in. And then they give the money to these various companies, and then that is known as the SBIC program. Um, the SBA portion of it, does need to be paid back though. It is lower interest, but it's something that something which works more like an investment program. So you could look at that if you're interested in the SBIC program. Um, if you want to find an investor or not, yeah, if you want to find a company that participates in the Small Business Investment Company program, an investor, you just go to this website on the top of this slide, funding programs / investment capital. And this is a screenshot. You just hit that button where it says find investors, right? And the SBACs that are in your area would pop right up. So that is the SBAC program. All right. Grants. Now, grants, it's not really financing. This is really funding in exchange for performance. So, when people think of grants, people say, oh, great, free money. Not really free. It's funding in exchange to do something, right? So there are grants out there. You can apply for them. Um, they may or may not be there for your small business. There are grants out there to do things, but this is funding in exchange for performance, promise to do something. All right. So most of the grants that the SBA participates in are very specific and limited. They're not, I'm sorry, they don't go to small businesses. All right. I'm sorry, I hate to be the bad guy, but they don't go to small businesses. They're specific and very limited. The exception to that rule was during the COVID-19 pandemic. The SBA did have programs that went directly to small businesses. They were grants, or they served like grants, such as the Paycheck Protection Program. It was similar to a grant, or the Restaurant Revitalization Fund for those of you that have restaurants or in the food service business. But a lot of those programs have expired, as I mentioned. Most of the SBA grants go to organizations known as entrepreneurial serving organizations or entrepreneurial development organizations. That's most of the SBA grants. So, for example, that second item there, export grants for state. So the SBA does have a grant program. It gives money to state agencies that are focused on exporting. Every state has an export office. All right, so all state governments, they have an office of export where they would engage small businesses in their state, and they would help them sell their goods and services to different countries, right? So the SBA gives those state agencies that help with export grants, known as the STEP program, the State Trade Expansion Program. And what these state agencies typically do with this money from the SBA, they sometimes do counseling and training with that. They take some of that money, they may go on trade missions overseas. So that's an example of how SBA grants work. Um, Small business grant programs. Um, so I did mention a grant program, a program which works like a grant, feels like a grant, known as a Small Business Innovation Research Program, the SBIR program, right? This is for companies that are developing technologies that the government is interested in funding. So it's not really a grant. You don't go to Grant Solutions to look for SBIRs. You go to SAM, and that's where you find them. SAM is a system of award management. That's where you would find government procurements if you want to sell to the government. But it feels like a grant because you don't have to, you don't have to pay this money back. And it's not, and you don't have to give up a piece of your company, shares in a company like you would with an investor. So what the government would do is they would fund your development of a technology if you're developing a technology in various phases. Now, the money does not come from SBA for this program, the SBIR. It comes from 11 agencies that do research. These are agencies such as NIH, such as NASA, such as Department of Agriculture, agencies that do research participate in the SBIR program. All right. So, and these are phase grants. What the SBA does, it oversees this program. It writes the rules. It does a policy for this program, right? But if you're interested in this, there is a link you can go to, sbir.gov, and you can learn all about it. And, of course, reach out to me if you need more assistance. Um, there's a grant for management technical assistance. It used to be called 7J. This needs to be updated. It's now Enterprise to Grow. That's another program. If you're advanced in your business, not early stage, but more advanced, and you're ready to sell to the government, you could take advantage of this, what used to be called 7J training. Now it's called Empower to Grow. Um, but most small businesses, most grants are going to organizations. That's basically what the next slide says. Think colleges, universities, nonprofits. They get most of the grants from the SBA. What they do with these grants is they typically hire counselors, coaches, consultants, to help you with your business. And they do this by taking that grant money that the SBA gives. They form what they call an SBA resource partner organization, and they hire these consultants through that resource partner organization. This is about the grants I mentioned, SBIRs. They're love but limited. And this is again, I'm sorry, folks, I got ahead of myself when I was explaining it, but here's the website that I mentioned earlier in case you missed it. The SBIR, STTR, I didn't mention STTR. It's very similar to the SBIR. The requirements are a little different. The STTR requires you to have a university partnership, but SBIR does not. But you can learn all about that through the sbir.gov. Okay, so I'm not sure, are any of you in the construction or trades? You could do a show of hands. I don't know. I mean, I can't see the chat right now, but if anyone wants to show their hand and let us know if they're in construction and trades. It's a big industry, construction and trades in this area, especially. You do need, if you're in the construction and trades and you're just starting out, you may need to get a surety bond. Okay. And a surety bond is simply this. It's basically an insurance program, it's a guarantee program, kind of like the SBA guaranteed loans, where a contractor would say, you know what, you're a new contractor in terms of doing construction or trades. You may or may not be able to complete this project. So a prime contractor or a government agency might say, you know what, we're going to require you to get a surety bond. So, a promise that an insurance company or somebody is going to pay in case you cannot complete the work that you say you're going to do this construction project. So that's basically how a surety bond works, where surety bonds are requested, surety partners with the business. The SBA guarantees that surety bond, that says, okay, we're going to, this contractor, if they don't do this work, and they have insurance through a surety bond, the SBA provides a guarantee to that insurance, to the bonding company, that they will fulfill, the financial obligation. The business can't do the work. So that helps get bonds to more construction companies that are doing some work. That leads right into contracting procurement, because the government does buy a lot of construction, buildings, building development, facilities, developing things. But that's not all the government buys. The government buys pretty much everything with restrictions to certain things, but it buys a lot. IT services, if any of you are doing that, even food services. The government buys that stuff. So, it pretty much buys almost everything, I would say. The SBA does help, small business with selling to the government. It's a champion for small business. It's an advocate for small business, and selling to the government. It tries to hold federal agencies accountable to their small business goals. All right. So if you're interested in selling to the government, here's what you need to do. You need to start with this website, sba.gov/federal contracting. Save this in your folder.
Hey,
There's a
Nick,
one.
Nick,
Yes,
just
sir.
a quick question. Are you going to share the presentation?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely, no problem.
Thank
No
you.
problem. And I think it's also being recorded. Um, Yeah. So anyway, there's a wonderful contracting guide that will tell you everything you need to know to get started. If you know, and let's say you already are a government contractor, do visit our contracting guide anyway, because there are things in there that are for more advanced, help you become a better government contractor. How do you market to the federal government? How do you price your product or service for the federal government? You can find all these resources on at that website, posted on the top of the slide. If you're interested in getting various SBA certifications to win federal contracts, the SBA does have those. I'm not going to go over those right now. You could learn about those in the contracting assistance programs. And if you need counseling and help, the SBA has resources, not only with its resource partners, but also with Apex accelerators, known as Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. But I mentioned these various SB certifications that you could get that would help you win federal contracts. Now, I know I said help, not guarantee. All right. So I don't want you to think that by getting these various SB certifications, you're guaranteed to get a federal contract. No, that's not the case. They do help, but there are no guarantees. So you still have to be a good business. You still have to provide something that the federal government wants to buy at the price that they want to buy it. But there is a goal of award 23% of federal contract dollars to small businesses. These are the various SB certifications that you can get. The small disadvantage business, is one big certification that includes the 8A program. The 8A program, you probably heard about it. It's a program that you apply for. It's a 9-year program. You don't automatically get it. Well, you could automatically self-certify as a small disadvantaged business on your SAM profile. The 8A program is a little bit more. You got to apply for it. There's a woman-owned small business program. That's another certification. And again, like the small disadvantaged business program, there's a 5% goaling requirement. And then service disabled veteran owned, there's a 3% goaling requirement for that. And hub zone, there's a 3%. The difference between hub zone and service disabled veteran owned, the other three certifications, they consider the socio demographics of the owner. Who owns a business? Are you a woman? Are you a veteran? Are you in this disadvantaged class? If you are, you could get those other certifications. HubZone is different. You could be any social demographic. Yet that is based on where your business is located. All right, is your business in a hub zone? All right. So anyway, I wanted to say counseling and training is probably our secret sauce, because if you need capital access, your business has to be at a certain level before you could talk to an investor or a lender. Um, if you want to sell to the government requires your business to be at a certain level. The government's risk averse. They don't award contracts to new business startups, right? So the government wants to see that your business is a certain level of maturity and has experience to perform on a government contract, right? How do you get to that level of maturity? Counseling and training, so this helps you with other C's. How do we do this? Well, I mentioned the online programs, a business guide. Here's a screenshot of the business guide. They're wonderful resources right there to help you plan and launch your business. If you've already done this, manage and grow your business. Do go here. You always learn something. People always tell me, wow, I did not know that there was a module on social media marketing or in pricing a product or services. You could find all that, when you go to the business guide. And also my SBA Learning, they work hand in hand. There are various specialized courses you could get. I mentioned these, strategic marketing, financing, access to capital, and even government contracting. There's a readiness module that they have, are you ready for government contracting, that they put on this platform. So that's there. I know I'm rushing through it because I do want to allow time for questions at the end. But in addition to those wonderful online resources, I mentioned there's human resources that the SBA provides. As I mentioned, the SBA gives grants. Sorry. The SBA gives grants to nonprofit organizations to create what they call SBA resource partners. So the SBA takes your tax dollars, they give grants to colleges and nonprofits, right? And what these colleges and nonprofits do is they form what they call an SBA resource partner, such as a women's business center. You know, the grant usually goes from the SBA to a nonprofit organization, community development organization, and they create a women's business center. You do not have to be a woman to get their services. They do not discriminate. But they do specialize in women's business issues, such as women-owned small business certification. That tends to be their specialty, but they have that. Now, in addition to the women's business centers, there are the grant to colleges and universities. It SBA has what they call small business development centers, and this grant typically goes to colleges and universities. So what the SBA would do is take money from the SBA, give it to a university, and the university takes that money and hires small business development counselors with part of that money. And the university would match with in-kind donations. So, for example, if you're in Virginia, the grant goes to George Mason University. If you're in Maryland, the grant goes to University of Maryland College Park. And then they take that money and they create a small business development center right there on campus. And they also have satellite centers for SBDC. So it's not always on a college campus. They might be even off campus at times in more convenient locations. So the small business development centers, these are full-time counselors. They're there to help you with your business. So do use them. Your tax dollars have already paid for them. SCORE, Service Corps Retired Executives, they are volunteers. They're very experienced in business, for decades, and they want to give back. So they are volunteer counselors, and they're very specialized. So if you have a general business issue, let's say you're just developing your business plan, and go to either the small business development centers or the women's business centers, because they get a salary to help you with your business. SCORE, they're not paid, but they're doing it out of passion, and they really want to help businesses that need a specific need, specific targeted items. Let's say you need to put together a loan package. You could find a SCORE mentor that was a banker for 30 years. Let's say you want to submit a proposal for government contracting. There's probably a SCORE mentor that has a lot of government contracting experience that you could find based on specialization. So that's the neat thing about SCORE. For veteran-owned firms, there are Veterans Business Outreach Centers. The difference between Veterans Business Outreach Centers, VBOX, and the rest of the resource partners, they could be accessed in any state or territory. The VBOX are more regional. There are about 13 of them in the country. In the Mid-Atlantic region where we are, they're in Maryland at the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. So if you're a veteran-owned business, you could reach out to VBOC. In addition to resource partners, the SBA works with extended partners. These are not funded by the SBA, but we collaborate with these folks. I mentioned Apex Accelerators. They were known as PTACs. They're Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. So once you're ready to sell to the government, your business has a certain level of maturity, they would help you out, with all things procurement. If you're interested in export assistance, there's Export Assistance Center, and also there's MBDA and Community Navigator programs. The Community Navigator programs, that might be phased out. That was a creation of the previous administration. I'm not sure if that particular program is going to be continued. But anyway, to get all these folks to connect with all these folks I just mentioned and to get hooked up with them, you go to this website right here, sba.gov/local assistance. This is what you will see. This is the screen you see. You would hit that red button where it says search nearby. You put in your zip code, and this is what will pop up. I put in my zip code, and this is what popped up. all the resource partners in my area, based on proximity would pop up. All right. So that's how you find these folks. Disaster recovery assistance, I'll just make a quick mention. If your business is afflicted by a disaster, this is the website you want to go to. Funding program source has disaster assistance, and there would be online instructions on how you apply for disaster assistance. These disaster assistance programs could be used. These disaster assistance loans, these are low interest loans, could be used for the following purposes: to, if your business was afflicted and real estate, personal property was damaged, you could use the loans to rehabilitate that. Also, repair your machinery or any inventory that you may have lost. Again, our field office is in the Mid-Atlantic region. We serve the greater Washington metropolitan area, and this is my contact information. And I open up the remaining time to any questions or concerns that you may have.
Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate it. Let me get to some of the questions. Let's start with Aisha. Are you anticipating any changes to the existing programs by SBA in light of the current federal climate?
A very good question. I can't comment on that right now because until a change has happened, it's still in effect. You mentioned, I'll tell you one thing. You did mention in your introduction, you used to mention I was a program manager for Thrive. Right now, that's a change that happened. That CEO Academy is on pause in the current climate. Because one of the things new administration is doing is they're really focusing agencies to go to their mission essential functions, and that was not really deemed mission essential for right now. So that CEO Academy is on pause. So that's one such program that has happened. There could be other changes, absolutely. I'm not aware of them, but until those happen, these programs are in effect.
Awesome, folks. So stay tuned. Anything is possible tomorrow.
And of course, we could always do this, in the future. So if anything has changed, I'll definitely update my slide deck, and I'll be happy to cover what has changed.
So Bilal has a question. What do you recommend for people who want to start with federal government and don't have a history of business yet?
Really good question. I would say start with the federal contracting guide that I put up on this slide deck. And I believe I emailed this to you already, Shade. If you can't find it, the slide deck, I'll email it again. No problem. But that is where you start. Second place where you start is, get good at that, and you don't have the past form. Second thing I would do is once your ducks are in a row, once you go to the federal contracting guide, your ducks are in a row, you have your capability statement, subcontract. That's the best thing. Learn while you earn. So you could get a past performance by subcontracting. So what all subcontracting is the federal government awards a contract, a direct contract to what they call a prime contractor, and then there would be, and then less, and a lot of that work usually goes to subcontractor. In fact, if a contract is above $750,000 for non-construction, the under the federal acquisition regulation, the prime contractor is required to have a subcontracting plan. So any contract over $750,000, the prime contractor must subcontract some of that work out to small businesses through their subcontracting plan. So how do you subcontract? You connect with the prime, and the primes are, of course, the big firms that you see going down, the I-66, your SAIC, your Booz Allen, anyone that people that might work for some of these firms, LinkedIn, they are excellent resources. Some of your friends that work from some of these contractors, you could talk to them, say, hey, I'm interested in subcontracting. Also, there's something called Subnet. The SBA website, I think, is simply Subnet. And there's also Dynamic Small Business Search. I could send you those links. So if you're interested in subcontracting, definitely sign up in the Dynamic Small Business Search. That's a website managed by the SBA, and you'd fill out your profile there. It pulls a lot of information from SAM. SAM stands for this system of award management. So if you want to sell anything to the federal government, you got to register in SAM. But the dynamic small business search also pulls a lot of that data. So that's another way you could subcontract. You could approach primes directly, and you could also register in the dynamic small business search. And if you're interested, Shahid, I do a presentation, government contracting for beginners. I'll be happy to do that for you guys.
Awesome. Just a quick, high level. Again, you covered so many things today. Can you give us a quick rundown just so we can have an idea when we invite you in the future? What are some of the topics that you do cover? So you just mentioned one right now, which is Intro to Government Contracting.
Yeah,
Are
that
there
would be that's something. Intro to capital access. That's another one. The bread and butter. Um, yeah, and if you want to go deeper into that, let's say you want to, do a deeper dive into any of these, because government contracting is deep, so is capital access. We could go deeper from there. So let's say you want to say, all right, carbon contracts is interesting. I want to do a deeper presentation on this particular certification that I might get on government contracting. We could cover that. Let's say 8A program. My colleague here, Lisa Lievela, has a lot of experience on the 8A program and other government contracting programs as well. So if you want to go beyond introductory level, we could do that. Let's say we want to do a deeper dive in capital access, we could do that as well. Let's say you want to do something on the working capital program, or we could do presentations on those. So anything SBA related, and of course, disaster assistance, if that's a need, we could do that. Export assistance, let's say people want to sell a product or service overseas, we could do presentations. We might not be doing them ourselves, but we could definitely find subject matter experts within the SBA to do these presentations for you guys.
appreciate it, Nick? Does anyone have any other questions for Nick or Lisa? Feel free to drop it in the chat or just unmute yourselves. Okay, fantastic. Nick, I really appreciate your time. Lisa, thank you for joining us. I think we're going to have you guys back again very soon, especially on the federal contracting side. For those in attendance, just so you know, we have a committee in Move that is focused on intro to government contracting and contracting in general. The person leading that committee, the largest contract he won was an $800 million federal contract. So he's doing a workshop, an all-day workshop on uh, basically the nuts and bolts of winning a contract, capture, anything you can think of. And we'll definitely be out on the look for that. And just so you guys know, a couple of next events that we have a job fair and this could be relevant next time, Nick, in the future,
Mhm,
for those interested in construction and the trades. That's on
mhm.
April 12th. We have a similar job fair on June 16th in Alexandria. And please check out our website, movechamber.org, for upcoming events, and check out LinkedIn, Move Chamber, for some of our previous events highlights. I want to thank you, Nick, Lisa, everyone for joining us. And I will share these slides in the next, probably by Friday.
Awesome.
And if you have
Our
any questions, you can email Lisa. Her email is down in the chat. I'll wait a minute, give you guys a chance to copy and paste it. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.